Hey, it says we're being we're live. It always just sneaks up on me. So, hi everybody. I am going to take just a second to bring this conversation up on my phone so I could monitor questions when they come up. But I'm really, see, yikes. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this conversation. So, hello, everybody in Facebook world. I am here with the incredible author, and I can also call you my friend. Can I call you my friend?
I'd be insulted if you didn't.
Everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Quinlin, and I know you go by Quinn,
Yeah,
but your
I
your author name is Quinlin
yeah,
Willow,
yeah.
right?
It is, yeah.
It is. I'm so excited to be sitting with you. This is incredible. So, we're here today with Quinn, who is a 19-year-old, soon to be 20-year-old author, and she just published her first book. I couldn't be more thrilled. The book is called Shadows of the Gathering, the Alderthorn Chronicles. And yeah, welcome, Quinn.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
So I am here on my personal Facebook because people know that I am really supportive and engaged and really I have a lot at stake to
Mm,
see the success of the teens that I work with. And you and I have been working together for a couple years, right?
yeah, it's been a while.
And Quinn has also become my assistant in the courses that I teach. So she's been sort of like the peer facilitator with all the teens that join me during the mental health courses. And so you've taken the course 6 times.
So many times. So many times. But it's been good. It's been good. I use all that I learn all the time now.
And I have seen you transform from somebody who was really kind of timid and not quite so sure of themselves to somebody now who has just authored their first book. To be fair, though, you had written many books before. This isn't the
Mhm.
first book that you wrote. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who's watching a little bit first about this book and the series? Yeah.
Ooh. Well, this book is the first of the series. It's the first one ever. I wrote this before quarantine and then spent all of quarantine writing the next two, which was absolutely a great time. I loved writing these books. I feel so much like they're my children. Like the characters in these books are like people I'm so familiar with now after all this time spent with them, but not with them, like creating them. Um yeah, like this book is about siblings. It's about them finding each other and coming from different backgrounds and learning how to love each other, even though they don't always agree on things. Very much though they don't agree on things. Um,
So
yeah,
you were explaining to me that the character it's a like a cast, like there's several characters that
yeah,
are the
yeah.
lead. It's not just the story of one person. And so what would that be called? Like a collective or a
Kind of. The story
ensemble?
follows ensemble. Yeah, it follows mostly the one character, but it branches off at some points into different perspectives of like the brother or the other sister, to get a different point of view of what other people are thinking after an argument, after a really good morning that they might have had, where maybe they've come away with different takeaways from a conversation, which I think is really important in storytelling of getting different perspectives on things.
I love that so much. And so this is the first book in a
Yeah.
chronicle or series of three, correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Are all three written already?
They are all written and finished, not edited yet, although kind of edited. The second one's kind of edited. I've had a pass through of it, but not a real good grammar check yet.
So the first draft for the other two chronicles are the other two in the
Yeah,
series are finished,
they
but the
are
rest
finished.
not ready to publish yet. So we're talking about a series of three books that you wrote that follow this ensemble family, right?
Yeah.
Family, and it's set in a fantasy world. You want to tell us about the world, the setting of?
Yeah, it's a modern fantasy. It takes place in London, but it's a culture that that I came up with myself. It's a culture about people following the rules of who they call the Guardian, who was like an angel type deity that blessed them centuries ago, ages ago. And now there's this whole society of people. Their job was to protect, their job was to keep the peace and look after all these other different people. You got like all kinds of vampires, of course, in fantasy. You got warlocks and fairies and all the other arguing people and the little bits of confrontation that goes between. But the main set of the story is in London.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so the first book really establishes the relationship between this ensemble
Yeah.
cast, if you will. And when we spoke a little bit before we went live, you called them a found family?
Yeah, a found family. It's they are real family. They're blood family. But the idea that I took and decided to base this book off of was they were separated when they were really young. And because of that, they grew up in very different lifestyles. And now that they're together, they kind of get to choose whether or not they want to be a family. And in that, they find themselves and they find each other and they find other people. It's not just those three. They have tons of friends that come in and they do at least I hope by the end of the book start to seem a bit more like a family, even though not all of their issues are solved yet, hence why there's a second and then a third.
Right. So you really dive into the relationship between and I'm going to use air quotes, the siblings, right? The
Yeah.
siblings in this family. Can you talk a little bit about how your own family inspired, the development of the relationship between the siblings in this found family in your?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm really lucky. I have a really great relationship with my siblings. I'm very, very lucky for that. Um, so the end goal of this, well, in the very beginning, they didn't have a very good relationship. The end goal was to give them that really close, tight-knit family unit that they all kind of needed. And that is something that I ended up basing kind of off of myself and my little siblings because we're very close. We tell each other everything. We sit down, we watch things, we watch funny videos all the time. They'll come in and they'll say, "Hey, I just saw this video." They don't bother knocking. And so that's the kind of relationship I was hoping to emulate by the end of the series.
Except for in a fantasy world with
Except there's
dragons.
dragons, you know?
I love that. I love that so much. So tell us the name and sort of a little bit of the biography of a couple of the characters in this book.
Ooh, okay. So the only boy, his name is Tiberius,
Okay.
and he grew up in a very military kind of mercenary type background where he was raised very strict, very cold, very emotionless. And so for him, the book is kind of the books and finding his siblings are kind of about learning how to then experience feelings almost and learn to not be an automaton that he'd been trained to be like his whole life. And after Tiberius, there's Avery. She's the middle child. She had, I think, what could be described as the most normal upbringing out of all of them. She grew up with their mother. She was the only one of them that actually grew up with their mother. And they lived in London. She went to school, had her best friend, who is a character still in the books. She grew up, ended up owning a little boutique of her own, and she's a little bit more on the confrontational side of things. While he, like Tiberius, is very cold and calculating, she's very much like, I'm going to argue with everyone about everything. kind of a little bit judgmental on certain things. And so her goal of the book is really to start learning, like, to not be as confrontational and to be a little less judgmental towards people who didn't grow up in the same world as she did.
And give me another character.
And the last character, the last the youngest sibling, who the book follows mostly, as the series follows her from beginning to end, is Fire, Phyre. And she grew up, she was adopted by an elf. Big, think like Lord of the Rings types elves, and not like Santa's helper type elves.
Okay.
And she grew up very in an almost activist background, where she was constantly fighting for the rights of, you know, the fairies, the vampires, the warlocks, who were almost being put down by these race of people who were blessed. And so she's very logical thinking, very loving as well. Like, she grew up with a secondary family, who she loves to pieces and does everything she can to protect them. And I'm not supposed to pick favorites, but she's my favorite.
You could do that. You wrote them. You
Yeah.
life into them. For those of you, a bunch more people have just started watching this. Just to recap real fast, I'm speaking to author Quinlin Willow, who is a 19-year-old, soon to be 20-year-old author. She has just published her first book in a series of 3 in this particular series, and I know you've written more books too. And we're just sort of exploring some of the characters. It's a fantasy book. It's a young fiction,
Young adult, yeah.
fiction, so appropriate for people from what age, more or less? What do you think?
I'd give it to like my younger brother to read, and he's 12 if he read.
So 12 on up. And
Yeah.
actually, the thing that's really incredible is it's not really that incredible. We all do what we want to do, but people have an idea about unschooled kids and how they grow up. So you grew up without going to school. You grew
Yeah.
up being educated in your family and mostly self-directed learning, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the thing that brought you to writing, which I thought was an incredible story, was when you were living in Malta with your family and
Mhm.
you had a hard time finding books that kept you.
Yeah.
So, you want to talk a little bit about how you first came to writing and what the biggest challenges were for you at that point? So go back
Yeah.
in
I
time.
mean, that's going way back. Well, when we left Canada, we were going to Morocco first. Um, and it's that when you're traveling, you kind of have to decide what you really want to fill your suitcase with. And books is not one of the things that they recommend.
You're happy.
They're very heavy. And so like when I was 11, I had to choose which books I wanted to bring with me. And so I brought the biggest books I could afford to bring, so hoping that they would keep me going for a while. And they did for a little while. And then I got really bored. And in my little 11-year-old brain, I thought to myself, I have all of these like stories that I want to read, but they haven't been written and I can't find them. So why don't I just do it myself?
I love that.
No one else is going to do it, then I'll do it.
And did anybody ever say, no, you can't do that?
No, no.
Oh my gosh, right. Okay, I love that. So there was no like resistance
Oh, yeah.
from people around you. And were you encouraged to do it?
Absolutely. At first, it was kind of sparse in between where I could write, because I didn't have my own computer at the time. So I would just like, when my mom would go out and she'd do work or she'd go on walks, I'd steal her computer and I'd sit down and I'd write. And she'd come back and I'd be writing and she'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm writing a book." And she'd be like, "Okay, sure." And by the end of it, I had this thing that I'd created that I think was, I still have it to this day. Is like 300-400 pages. And I told my parents, I was like, "Hey, I finished this book. I wrote it. It's like 300 pages." And they were shocked. They were really impressed.
I love that. I love that. So again, this is the first of three books. And
Yeah.
go ahead, you have the book sitting with you right now. Can you just show everybody your book? This is the book that Quinn wrote, the first of three. And let's look at that thickness again. How
It's
many
yeah.
pages are in this book?
Nearly, I think it came down to nearly 600. Yeah, it leveled out at 594.
Wow, wow. Okay, so talk to me about the title, Shadows of the Gathering, the Alderthorn Chronicles. Tell me, what is this? What does it mean?
Well, the Alderthorn Chronicles. Alderthorn is the last name of the main characters.
Got it. Okay.
So that's where that comes from. But Shadows of the Gathering, originally the book was just called The Gathering because it's where they all got together. But I didn't like that. When I really got to like thinking about publishing it, I kind of decided there needs to be something more. And I really thought about the story and what it was about. And I kind of came to the realization that there was a lot of darkness in what should have been a very happy experience of them getting together, but it ended up being them having a lot of fallouts and having to get over these fallouts. And so that's where the shadows part of Shadows of the Gathering came from.
I understand. Wow, that's powerful. And what is the second book and the third book called?
Ah, uh, it's and I can't explain why because that is a spoiler for the book, but it is called
Okay,
it is called In Light of the Fallen.
okay, so that's the second book.
Yeah, that's the second book. And the third book is still pending with its title.
Okay,
But it's still pending. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to tweak it. It's got a placeholder name at the moment.
okay, okay. We'll just wait for that. We'll wait for that one to come back. How did it feel, Quinn, to hold your book in your hand for the first time?
Really strange, very strange. I remember what was I doing at the time? Can't remember what I think I was just on my computer messing around with something. I was like checking emails and my parents came into the living room really excited, and it's not often I get to see my parents is like giddy, and so they like thrusting this like Amazon package into my hands, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. And so I like unwrapped it, and I could see my mom was getting teary-eyed and my dad was like really excited, and I opened it, and I really, when I thought about it before like getting the book in my hands for the first time, I really thought I was going to cry. I really did. I didn't. I didn't cry. And I went and I like immediately went in because my sister was on a call or something, so I couldn't show her. I went to show my little brothers instead. And they were in the living room. They'd just seen my parents come running in and then go running out again. And I showed it to my brother Logan. And he knew instantly because he knew. He was like, oh my God, that's so cool. The cover looks great, which I was very happy about because
Hold it up again. Hold it up.
I spent so much time trying to do the cover and make it look right and make it because I wanted it to continue all the way around. And so
So
that
beautiful.
took so much time.
Right.
But then I went and I showed my youngest brother, he's not like young, he's like 12. But I showed it to him and he went, oh, cool, you got another book. And I was like, no, okay, no, it's not just any book, it's my book. I wrote this book. Do you remember all those hours I spent on the computer writing? And he looked at it, he was like, wow, that's so cool. Like as he realized what it was. And I handed it to him and he took it and he nearly fell over because he wasn't expecting it to be as heavy as it was.
It looks happy. Okay, so I'm dying to buy it, and I keep checking Amazon Mexico every single day, and it's not available. But I do know it is currently available in the UK and in the United States to start off with. And do you know if
Yeah.
it's available in other countries
It
or?
should be available. Last time I checked, it should be available everywhere. I don't know why it's not available in Mexico yet. I'll have to look into that. But it should be available in Canada, in Australia, anywhere that you have Amazon, it should be
Okay.
available.
Well, I'm going to put the link below in this chat, and there's a bunch of people watching, and I'm really excited that you're watching. So, just to recap, I'm talking to unschooled teen author Quinlin Willow, and she's talking about her first book that she just published. Hold it up. It's one of three books. How many books have you written? I know this is the first one that you've published, but how many have you written to date?
So there's these three,
Okay.
and there was one before this one that was kind of, I felt as if it was my practice
Your
run of
practice book.
really writing a book and thinking about publishing it. I don't think I would, but it was my real practice run of, okay, this is what it needs to look like. This is what planning it looks like. This is what the characters look like. And then there was one that I wrote after these, when I finished them back in 2021.
Yeah.
And that one is, I'm very excited to get to the point where I can publish that book because I love that book quite a bit.
Okay, I can't wait. I'm going to read all of your books. I am. Um, Anybody who's watching, do you have any questions for Quinn, teen author? And just so you guys know, too, if you're just joining us, Quinn has worked with me for more than 2 years. In fact, one of the dedications in my book is to Quinn because I just love working with you and I love how much you've stepped into your own empowerment and I just think you're an amazing human being and I'm just so incredibly proud of you. So I'm here to support you. You've supported me and you've been an assistant to me in the courses that I teach for teens. And so I'm really, really honored to be able to show up for you and support you in this way. So if there's any questions, if anybody has any questions, there's a bunch of people watching, put them into the chat. And if you happen to watch this in replay, by all means, I'll tag Quinn. We'll make sure that she, pops back in if there's any questions for her there. In closing, while we're waiting to see if there's any questions, did you want to say anything else about, what it's like being a first-time published author?
Um, I don't know. It felt very strange to have spent so many years having like files like this on my computer where I could open and read them. And I used to go back and like read them for fun and check bits of spelling and add details where I thought needed a little bit more detail. But it's strange now and always feels surreal to be able to hold it in my hands and know that other people get to hold it in their hands too and be able to like read it. I almost put a dedication into my book and I decided not to because I felt like I didn't want one, but I did end up writing one in the very back of the book, just for me to have. And it's just a little bit of a dedication, kind of to my younger self, like we've talked about a couple times. Um,
I love that. Oh my God, I'm getting all teary.
no, don't, no.
No, don't do it. Okay, okay. Oh, but that's so incredible. Oh, wow, that's amazing, Quinn.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. Oh my God. So, who do you hope your book, whose hands do they land in? Tell me, it's written for whom? For a 15-year-old girl who is seeking a, connection or who is it written for?
It was written for people, and I say people because it could be anybody, but it was written for people who felt like they needed to take comfort outside of themselves and find comfort in other things, in a book, in the characters in the book, who they could follow along with the story and experience their feelings and feel like they were experiencing those feelings and feel connected to something that was outside of themselves.
Yeah. But it's really a journey about the self, isn't it? I mean,
It
all
is, yeah.
parts are really all of us, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions, but there's a bunch of people watching. So I hope you guys go out and go get Quinn's book. And if you've got teens or young readers, get them this book. Yeah, there's nothing else I can say. I'm really excited for you. I'm so proud of you. I can't wait to read the book myself. But I just gotta get it
I
available.
hope it becomes available in Mexico soon because
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. And like I said, as soon as I finish this, I'm going to put the links into the comments so you can go to Amazon and order Quinn's book. That's it. Any final words?
I don't know. Just enjoy reading, enjoy having it, enjoy your day.
And enjoy your day. Fantastic. Let me stop